So, hi everyone. As I promised, today we have the great Ollie Richards. I'm a huge fan. Yeah. So, very nice to have you on my channel. It's a big honor for me. And yeah, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm not used to such a glorious introduction, but I'll accept it. I'll take it.
Yeah, about the introduction. So, who Ollie is? Polyglot, if I may say, right? Great teacher, blogger, writer, author, right? But I guess you'll do a better job introducing yourself. Like, what do you do? And
Yeah. So, hello everybody. Lovely to see you. My name is Ollie Richards. I'm from the UK, and I've always been a big language fan. So I've been learning languages since the age of 19. I speak 8 languages. Although that's always kind of a moving target as the years go on. I kind of forget some and I learn others. But I've always loved learning languages. I've also taught languages for years as well. So I was a language teacher. I worked in Japan and in the Middle East. And so I started really my work with my blog originally, combining my experience learning languages with my experience teaching languages. And that, I think, is what I've tried to bring uniquely to the language learning space. And so I've blogged about languages for a long time. I have a YouTube channel where I make videos about language learning. But one of the things that I'm most known for actually is my book. So I've written a lot of books. We have over 40 books now. I've published books of short stories together with Teach Yourself, plus my own series of books. And yeah, I also have other like complete language courses and digital programs and things like that. So everything language learning.
My audience is definitely familiar with this book of yours, Short
Yes.
Stories in Russian. We were reading it on my channel and also on Instagram. We read a couple of excerpts from it. That's an amazing book. That's an amazing
Oh,
book.
thank you. I'm glad
And
you like it.
uh, what do you share? How you came with this idea of teaching through stories? Because I am 100% pro story story learning myself, and my students know that I always try to implement some little ridiculous stories, but not everybody appreciates this method, let's be honest, especially some old school teachers. A lot of people say that it's not what we need. We need the good old methodology,
Yeah, well,
grammar.
I mean, I think everyone is pro reading, aren't they, in general? Even the kind of old school teachers, I'm sure would say, if you ask them, is it good to read books in Russian? I'm sure they'd say, yes, it is. I mean, it's difficult to find someone who doesn't think that reading is a good thing to do. The problem is, of course, that in language learning, it's difficult to read because if you want to read, say, if I'm learning Russian and I want to read Tolstoy, um, you know, how many years do I have to study Russian before I'm able to read Tolstoy? It's too difficult, right? And so reading things in the language that we're learning is often too difficult. Now, for years there have been graded readers available in different languages, but graded readers I've always found are rather boring. They're often kind of old classics and old tales that have kind of come out of copyright, and so people kind of use them. It's quite rare to find graded readers which are the kind of things that you really want to read yourself. And so what I wanted to do was to make fun, interesting stories to read that you would want to read in your own language. And so that's really where the idea came about. And so I started. I wrote my first book of short stories in Spanish, and then from there, working with Teach Yourself, we then expanded that into. I mean, I've lost track of the languages now. I think it's about 20 languages. But the idea has always been a kind of fresh, modern, fun way to read, to improve your vocabulary, to learn grammar more naturally, and to enjoy part of the learning process. And so, what I've described there really is graded readers, but a kind of more modern take. Story learning, as I call it, is kind of this method that I've developed around learning. So, if you want to learn a new language like Russian, for example, using stories, how can you do that? Because again, even with my books, you can't pick them up and read them as a complete beginner. So what I do is I develop courses that teach you a language through stories, through reading right from the beginning, which is that, yeah, that's the kind of the more the more course-based side of what I do.
So how exactly does it work? For example, somebody decides to learn Russian from scratch. This person doesn't know the alphabet, nothing of grammar, zero vocabulary. So at what point they can pick up the first story and start reading it? So what are the very first tiny steps to progress?
Yeah, so in my programs, we get you reading right from day one. Now, yeah, so then the question is, well, how do you do that? So the material that you have is extremely important, and one of the key principles of learning through reading is the idea of comprehensible input. So you need to be reading something at the right level for you. If you try to read something that's too hard, you won't understand anything, so you won't learn. So then, as a complete beginner, how do you do that then? So what we do is we create very, very simple, easy, short stories for complete beginners with lots of repetition, and right at the beginning on day one, I'll ask you to read the story and also listen to the story, and I'll say, right, I want you to read this many times. I know you don't understand. I know that you're going to think this is just far too difficult, but just read and then listen and then read and listen. Because what I want you to do is to get the habit of reading and listening to real Russian right from the beginning. Because if you can do that from the beginning, everything else gets easier. So then you'll spend time with this very, very simple story, chapter one of this first story. And then what happens then is you will have actual lessons where a teacher will come in and actually help you uncover what you've been reading. So I'll go through line by line and say, right, you see that word, and that's what it means. And you see this word, it means this. And then bit by bit, you start to uncover and understand the material. And then over time, as you read and listen to more chapters of the story, you start to recognize words. And we write the stories in a way where there's lots of repetitions that kind of supports the learning. So it's a combination of very simple material as a beginner that gets gradually more difficult, together with teacher support to help you actually begin to learn what you're doing. It's not, it's not Duolingo. It's not the kind of quick and easy method for people who kind of like something very easy and dumbs down, as we say. This is not it. Story learning is for people who really want to develop a very good understanding of the language and have the patience to learn in that way.
Yeah, and I guess in some languages, especially in Russian, there is just no easy way. You should just accept it at the beginning. There is no easy way with Russian. I really love your approach of diving into the language instantly. I remember in one of your videos, you made this really great analogy with learning how to play piano. Do you remember? Can you share it when some pupil student comes to learn to play piano, and the teacher goes explaining how the instrument works for like a couple of weeks, not even letting you touch the keys.
Exactly, the keys. Yeah. No, I don't
Mhm.
remember exactly whether this was in an email that I wrote or in a video. But yeah, the idea is that so traditional language learning is all based on the theory, on the grammar, right? And so the idea is, imagine if you went to learn the piano, and on the first lesson, the teacher said, "Okay, we're not going to play anything today. Let's come around and look at the piano. Let's look at the lid. Let's look at the strings." It's very interesting, very useful. And then in the second lesson, you sit down and they say, right, we're not going to play anything today. And we're going to talk about music theory. Here are scales. Here is major and minor. Here is the cycle of fifths, or well, that probably wouldn't be lesson two, but anyway. And then and then lesson three is more theory. Lesson four, trying to teach you all about how the sound of the piano works mechanically, how music theory works, but then you're not actually playing anything on the piano. You could be a world expert on music theory, but you'd have no idea how to play the piano. That is pretty much how languages are taught traditionally. And so my point of view is that it's much better to start playing the piano from day one, because even though you will make mistakes, even though it will be horrible, the process of learning anything is by making lots of mistakes over and over and over, and then gradually, over time, learning to get them right. And languages are very much like music. in the sense that you make lots of mistakes, but then you just gradually piece it together over time.
Yeah, I wish more people understood this, especially at the university levels, language school levels, because there are usually those strict programs that you must follow. And for like 2 weeks, we do only writing, only learning alphabet first, then we learn how to write cursive. And I see in the eyes of students that they're like, Where is the language? When are we going
Yeah.
to actually say something?" So it's very sad that a lot of people still follow this very old method of grammar, writing nonstop. And the language itself, the main purpose is communication at the first place. And that's why I think learning through stories is important. It gives you context from the very first time you learn the language, so you kind of get into it instantly. That's what's really great about this method.
I mean,
I want.
the reason that that people teach through grammar is simply because it's the most teachable thing. You know, grammar
Mhm.
has lots of so-called rules, and where you have rules, that's an opportunity for teaching. And but I think most of our education systems are they're based on the model from 200 years ago, where it's like if you understand something theoretically, then you can do it, but it just doesn't it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, especially in some areas, it definitely should be changed. But what is the level of, not level, like the amount of grammar explanations in your method?
So
If you compare it to the old school methods, old style, like how similar it is, how different it is in terms of grammar.
So we do teach grammar because grammar is important. You do need to know how grammar works. A lot of people say, "Oh, forget grammar. You don't need grammar." I don't. I disagree. You definitely do need grammar. The main difference is one of approach. So in the traditional method, what happens is that you will look at all the grammar you need at A1, for example, and say, right, here are all the rules, the 5 rules you need for A1 Russian, and we're going to learn this rule this week, and then this rule in the second week, and this rule in the third week. And it's all governed by the rule. So you start with the rule and you look at lots of examples and you practice that rule. The idea being that a grammar rule, you can learn it, practice it, and then you will know it. With the story learning approach, is very different. What we say is we're focusing on the story. And the aim of all of this is for you to understand the story so you can follow the plot and enjoy it. Now, along the way, you will see grammar that's being used to say different things. He said, she is going, he took out, whatever it may be. So what we do is when we come across this grammar in the story, we press pause and we say, right, now you see that grammar there? That's what it means. That's why we use that verb there. That's why we use that preposition. And so what we're doing is we are uh, the technical term is we're facilitating noticing. We're getting students to actually notice the grammar that's being used. I don't ask you to practice it. I don't ask you to do grammar exercises. All I do is I want you to notice how it's being used and then carry on with the story. Because then over time, you're going to see so much grammar being used and your brain will start to form patterns all by itself. And what you find is that not by studying, without even studying grammar, just by continuing to read the stories, you'll start to notice the grammar being used in different ways, and your brain will learn over time what sounds right and what doesn't. And now obviously that's not a fast process. It doesn't happen in 1 week or in 2 weeks, but it's a gradual thing that happens over time. And it is the important thing to remember is that it's not through the grammar that you learn the language, whereas the traditional approach says, hey, if you learn this grammar, then you'll speak Russian. But of course, as we know, that's not how it works. So grammar is important, but it's much better to learn the grammar as and when you need it to understand what's going on, rather than to learn the grammar first and try to then get it perfect after that.
Yeah, I'm always suspicious about people who, especially they're getting more popular on YouTube, like, you need zero grammar. I lived in Russia for a year and I'm fluent now, never opened a single textbook. It doesn't work that way.
No.
It just doesn't. And yeah, I'm surprised how many people fall for this because they are feeling intimidated by Russian grammar, but you can't avoid it completely. There
You
is
can't.
just
I think there's. I think it's a question of degree. So, the reality is because people that say, "Hey, you don't need any grammar. Forget grammar." This is a reaction to the traditional approach, and the traditional approach is it doesn't work for people because there's too much. Your brain cannot learn hundreds of different rules and conjugations, memorize them, and then sort them out perfectly in real time when you speak. So that the approach doesn't work for people. And so it's tempting for people to say, "Hey, you don't need grammar. I can just learn to order my food and order my drinks, and I can just learn a few words and memorize some phrases." And the truth is that you can get by with no grammar just by learning words. And so it's kind of tempting to think, "Yeah, you don't need grammar. You can communicate super well just with a few words." And you can, but then you don't want to be like Tarzan in the language either. So but I think the reason that advice can be tempting for people is because it gives you an excuse not to learn grammar, and it gives you a kind of rationale to think, "Oh, thank God, it's all right. I didn't need to learn grammar after all." But in reality, you do need to learn grammar. It just doesn't need to be a grammar first approach.
Yeah, I guess it's great when grammar is implemented inside something else, like in your situation, some stories. By the way, before I forget, I wanted to ask when you spoke about those stories, uh, you write them yourself, or where do you get the ideas about them? What's the like? Where do you get the plot, the characters? How is this part organized?
Well, this is just good old fashioned story writing. I mean, how does anyone write any book? It all starts with an idea, and it goes from there. So it really depends on the on the book or the course. So, for example, in our beginner story learning courses, the stories are all based on a trip. So three friends, and this does change slightly depending on the language, but basically two or three friends will travel to the country and they'll travel around the country and searching for certain clues. And the reason that the story is based on a trip like that is because we want to be able to show dialogue and communication between people, so you can learn some spoken language. But also, when they travel through the country, we can showcase different cultural elements of the language and the country as well. So I chose to have that as the storyline because it's it's something that is quite convenient to show the different language that we want to teach, but also it's a kind of simple story that people can understand. And then but with the short stories, I mean, the short stories, I originally wrote them in Spanish, and and then it was a case of actually what is interesting. So what I did for the short stories was, because these are not very simple stories. They're real stories with interesting, hopefully with interesting plots. But what I did was because I really wanted these books to be interesting. I really wanted the stories to be interesting for people. So I did a lot of research, and I went and asked people who follow me at StoryLearning.com. I asked them, and in my Facebook groups, I asked lots of people who read my blog. I said, when you read stories, what genres do you like? Do you like historical fiction? Do you like sci-fi? Do you like crime? And then I got this list of the genres that people most enjoyed. So then I decided to write these stories based on those genres. So we had one kind of history story, and then one sci-fi story. Turns out people really like sci-fi. I didn't realize how much people like sci-fi, but they but they really do. And so every story and every course is kind of different. And right now we have a podcast called the Story Learning Spanish podcast, which is a daily fiction podcast with a story that kind of develops over 180 days. So it's really interesting, And I don't write all of the stories anymore. We have so much stuff going on that I can't write all of the stuff myself. So now I work with some very, very talented writers who help me with all of those things. But really, writing a story it comes down to the imagination, really.
Do you think the element of fun is important? For example, I am a fan of super absurd stories. That's how I learned English, through AJ Hoag's stories. He usually had some really absurd stuff, and I found out that it worked for me because how he explained it, like imagine you were checking tickets in the entrance of some movie theater, and you were doing it like all day long, and thousands of people passing by, and suddenly one person comes dressed as a chicken in a chicken costume, and you're like, wow, instantly among those thousands of people, you come home in the evening, and you say, can you imagine what happened today? Some dude dressed up as a chicken. So it went to your memory, and you will be remembering it for days. And same in stories, I started to implement this in my teaching. I use absolutely absurd characters, some completely impossible situations in my stories. But on the other hand, I noticed, by the way, it was a review under one of your books on Amazon, I think. Some guy put like 1 star there because the stories were, I don't remember what word he used, like absurd or kind of stupid, something like that. And I'm like, that's the whole point. Isn't that how they should be? They should be funny. They should be like, I don't know. So for me, it's better when stories are funny and interesting, not just like classic literature, so serious stories. So what do you think
Well,
about that
I
element?
mean, there's no pleasing everybody, and people that even in your mother tongue. I mean, some people like crime, some people like history, some people like romance, and I'm not a big fan of lots of different genres. I generally don't read sci-fi, for example. I don't like romantic fiction, but so I don't know what to say really. I mean, I think that so in with you're familiar with mnemonics,
Mm-hmm.
which are how you use imagery to remember words. One of the things that I learned from my friend Anthony, who is a memory practitioner, is that when you create mnemonics to try to remember words, one of the best ways to get words and imagery to stick in your brain is by using very extreme imagery. So, for example, if you're trying to create an image to remember a particular word, then if you use an image that's violent or sexual, for example, it's so extreme that your brain is going to remember it more because this is the stuff that sticks in our mind. So I think there is a case for using kind of very absurd things like your example with the guy dressed as a chicken in the movie theater, for sure. But I do think that that's perhaps a more elementary technique, something to learn more in the early stages, because what we're really trying to do with reading is to create a lifelong habit. And so for people watching this learning Russian, the ultimate goal where you want to end up is to be able to read real Russian books. And so it may be that you like reading absurdist literature, in which case that's fine. But generally, what I want to do with people is get them as quickly as possible into a place where they are reading for their own interest, and that's really the most important thing. So yes, absolutely, we can use we can use absurd stories, but I think the more important thing is to, as far as possible, be reading stuff that's based around your interests, and to give students the opportunity to choose things which are based around their interest. A bit like Stephen Krashen, his term FVR, free voluntary reading. Even for kids, the idea is that if you give kids the opportunity to go into a library and pick up books, choose the book they want to read, and then read it themselves, then you're just engaging so many more. You're engaging the parts of your brain which are associated with fun and enjoyment, and you're going to learn so much more as a result of that. So the challenge here is that everyone learns a bit differently, and while some people are going to really enjoy the absurd stories, other people, like your one-star reviewer example, are going to hate it. And there's no winning. You can't win in that situation. So you just have to kind of do the best you can and hope that people enjoy it.
But in general, this method with stories, do you think it works for everybody? So that guy with like negative review, maybe he just needed another type of reading or something, or there are some people for who this method is not going to work
Oh,
completely.
I
Maybe their
think
brain is different.
I always say that story learning probably is not for most people. A lot of people with languages, they just like to speak from the beginning. They want to be speaking, and they want to go to a class where there's lots of kind of crazy communication right from the beginning, and you're speaking and making mistakes. There are other people who just don't like reading, and those people might get on better with that kind of Pimsleur course or something where it's just like audio, and you don't even look at the at the text at all. So story learning is not for everybody. What I try to do is make the perfect material for the right kind of person. I'd much rather make the perfect material for someone who enjoys reading and enjoys learning through stories than something kind of bland and uninteresting for the masses, for everybody. Because I think with language learning, it is hard and it takes time. And so if I can capture your imagination somehow and make you excited and make you invested in the process, you're going to do better. So I definitely don't think that story learning is for everybody, and many people will be better off using other methods. Um, I could I obviously think that it's a very effective method, but if you don't enjoy it, then it's not going to work for you. So, yeah, I mean, I always encourage people to try lots of different things and try to find the method or the approach that works best for them. But I would say that in the long term, I see a lot of people get to an intermediate level in a language and then run out of steam and find it difficult to keep progressing. Reading is the best way to progress through the intermediate plateau and to become a more advanced learner, simply because you just encounter so much more language, so much more uncommon vocabulary, different ways to express things, new and different grammatical constructions. Reading is really the only reliable way to actually get lots of exposure to higher level language and learn from that. So, you don't have to read uh, in your language learning journey, but it's going to help you an awful lot if you do.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people think that reading is, again, outdated or something, but I think it's still the best way to grow your vocabulary, especially because in speaking, usually you avoid learning new words. Reading will show that you just must increase your vocabulary. So I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of.
it's also because with speaking as well, it's difficult because it's in real time, and with speaking, the focus is on communication and getting your point across. I want to make sure you understand what I'm saying, and I want to make sure I understand you when you reply. And there's a lot of pressure associated with speaking. But also, when we speak, we only use something like 5% of our total vocabulary.
Yeah, we're gonna choose the words we already know to express ourselves. There is just
We yeah
almost no
we
need.
use the same words all the time. We all have our preferred vocabulary, and so if you learn primarily through speaking, you're only going to be exposed to a tiny fraction of the overall language. And that's why people who learn through speaking, the first time they try reading, they think, man, this is really hard. There's all these words I've never seen before. And that's because they've just been spending too much time just speaking. It's not that you spend too much time speaking. I don't think you can spend too much time speaking. The more speaking, the better. It's just that it's only going to get you so far, and you do have to expand a long way, a long distance out of it.
But what is amazing about learning through stories, I'm speaking from my own experience, it actually at some point boosts your speaking as well
Of course,
because
yeah.
it's comes naturally and unexpectedly. I remember I started learning with stories. Before that, I only studied grammar for 10 years at school. I was always perfect in tests and everything, so good grades. But I couldn't speak. When I traveled abroad, I couldn't even order like apple juice. I was shy. I was like, all the time. And then I started learning with simple stories. I read them out loud. I tried to retell them. And step by step, I realized that instantly the words just come out of my mouth with the right endings, with the normal intonations. So
Yeah.
suddenly, after reading and listening, my speaking started to improve, and that's the great what's the like plus of this method.
This is one of the most common questions. It's like, Ollie, I want to learn to speak. So why should I read? Why should I spend my time reading if I want to learn to speak? The answer is because by reading, you get exposure to all this different vocabulary. You get to see grammar used in different ways. And this all goes in to your brain, which means when you go to speak, you've got this huge variety of language at your disposal that you can start to use. It's also just, with speaking, it's like we said before, it all happens so quickly. You really don't have time to reflect on the language you've used. It's crisis mode. You have to survive right now. But with reading, because it's not in real time, you can read the paragraph again, you can read the sentence again, you can go back and check a word from the previous page. Your brain's got time to process things, and so it's kind of an environment where you just slow down and have time to think and to reflect. And it's the polar opposite of speaking, which gives you the chance to learn, and then you take that into your speaking later, and you just have so much more at your disposal.
Mhm. So can you share a couple of so-called like success stories, like case studies of your students? For example, somebody was learning Spanish or Russian or I don't know anything for some time, and then they started to use your method, and they were like, "Wow, this works for
I mean,
me."
we have so many. There's if you go to there's a page on my website called storylearning.com/love, and I call this our love page. And this is because we have the same kind of messages from students all the time, and these come through emails. It comes in our Facebook groups, and comments on our courses and things like that. It's it's difficult to give case studies as such because language learning is it evolves so slowly. But one of the things that happens so often is that someone has been, like you said, will have been learning a language for, and it happens with Russian often as well. I've been learning Russian for 5 years, and I've just been learning grammar in my lessons. And then I read your book, and for the first time in my life, I was able to read not just an entire story, but an entire book in Russian. And it's just changed my life. And what it does is it gives people confidence that, yes, I can understand. And I'm not just struggling with grammar. I'm not just permanently feeling that I just can't memorize enough exceptions to the rule and verbs of motion and things like that. Actually, that's not everything. And I can sit with a story and enjoy it. And that moment for people when they get that is a revelation. And so it's kind of interesting that that's the effect that happens on a lot of people because they haven't read anything before. But for that reason, in my courses, I try to get people to start reading from the beginning, because if this helps you after you read your first book after 5 years, like imagine how it's going to help you if you do that from the beginning. So yeah, if anyone's interested, I go to storylearning.com/love, and you'll see a whole host of messages from people who've kind of experienced the benefits of this way of learning.
Yeah, I guess emotionally, it's just so important, this feeling of achievement that I did it. I read the whole story in a foreign language. I think emotions are very important in learning language. When you not just kind of boringly reading through something, but when you feel satisfaction of what you're doing, and when you're excited, when you are happy learning the language. I think to keep this feeling on the way of learning is
Yeah,
very important. Yeah, when you
it's
feel that
very important. It's something that polyglots are quite good at, because after you've learned a number of languages, you get used to creating excitement and motivation for yourself. But it's very difficult for first-time learners. So if someone's watching this who is learning Russian and it's their first foreign language, it's difficult to appreciate just how important it is to stay motivated and do things that are fun. My friend Richard Simcott gave me some advice the other day, because I'm learning Cantonese at the moment for the second or third time. And I said to him, man, like, I'm just really struggling with motivation at the moment. How do you stay motivated when you are coming back to a language that you used to know very well, and you've got to go through all that effort again. And he said, do things that you love. Listen to music, learn songs, join study groups where you're learning together with people. And it's such good advice because anytime you feel that you are not enjoying yourself, or you feel unmotivated, if you have a good work ethic, you'll keep pushing yourself through and you'll keep studying, but your brain, like, behind the scenes, is saying, please stop, this is just torturing me. So finding this motivation to keep learning is just so important. They say that there are three keys, there are three elements to learning a language, three components, three conditions that have to be true. One is the ability to notice. So the ability to notice features of language, like how a verb conjugates, for example. The second is time with the language. So actually having learned for long enough so that your brain has the chance to learn. And the third is motivation. Because if you're not motivated, you sure as hell won't learn anything, and you'll give up. But if you are motivated and you can keep finding ways to stay positive and stay excited, then you'll keep learning forever. And on a very simple level, really the only way to fail at a language is to give up. And the people who, I think with my own language learning, I'm not particularly talented with languages. But the thing that I do very well is I refuse to give up. I just keep going and I keep going. And so I think that's really one of my secrets, is just being very stubborn and refusing to give up and keeping myself motivated.
Yeah, this is great, especially in learning Russian. What you said is all crucial, because a lot of people, they just give up. Like facing the very first difficulty, they're like, it's not for me. I'm not good at languages. Let's just try something else. So yeah, staying motivated, not giving up in Russian, it's very, very important. But I think I've been keeping you for for way too long.
Not
Uh,
at all, not at
let's
all.
let's share with people, like, if somebody, I hope, got inspired today and decided that they want to try with your method. Where can they find you? Where to go?
Sure. So if you're on YouTube, then you can just type Ollie Richards into YouTube, and you'll find my YouTube channel. Perhaps, Daria, you could leave a link
Mhm.
for people to click there. If you want to find out more about my method and my courses and my books and things like that, you can go to StoryLearning.com, and there are links there to everything. We have a lot of Russian courses coming out this year for all kinds of things, like listening comprehension and grammar and immersion, and also beginner courses as well. So lots of interesting things there for people to dive into.
Should they join your newsletter to stay tuned,
Yeah,
or something?
that's a good idea. I mean, if people like, it's something that I always try and do whenever I find somebody new, is I always look for a newsletter to sign up to, because otherwise I kind of go to the website and then I go away and I forget about it, and I
Yeah.
never never come back to them again. So yeah, I actually I often get people writing to me saying they love my emails, because I write my emails in the form of stories as well, which I find helps the kind of tips in those emails to be remembered. So yeah, if you go to StoryLearning.com, and you can sign up to the newsletter there, and I'll send you some emails with some general advice for learning languages. Um,
Yeah, I guess I
I
will.
don't want to say the right way, but in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, I will leave all the links under the video and in the comments too. So hopefully more people will start following learning through stories, because honestly, it's one of the best methods today. So hopefully more people will join this wonderful community. So, Ollie,
Wonderful. Thank
thank
you so
you
much.
so much. Thank you. It's a big honor for me. I'm a huge fan of yours, and yeah, I'm really happy that you found time to talk with me and to teach my audience some valuable information. Thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's great to be here, and for the kind words as well. And likewise, I'm a huge fan, and everyone learning from Daria is extremely. They don't know how lucky they are.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. So, since we have our traditional Sunday readings, how about reading a little bit of this book we have been talking about for so long? I guess we start with the very first chapter. It is called Crazy Dumplings. Безумные пельмени. Безумные пельмени. Let me share my screen. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. So, Crazy Dumplings. Безумные пельмени. Глава 1. Глава 1 means chapter 1. The word chapter in Russian is глава. Готовимся. Готовимся means to be prepared, to get ready for something. Готовиться. For example, to prepare for Christmas. Готовиться к Рождеству. So, Даниэль, иди сюда. Зовет меня Джулия. Она стоит в дверях. First of all, check out that all the stressed letters, the ones that you are supposed to pronounce stronger, they are in bold. Иди сюда. Иди сюда. For beginners, it's great when you see where the stress should go in the word, because in Russian, it's basically unpredictable which part of the word is stressed. So, Даниэль, иди сюда. You probably know the infinitive идти, to go, to walk. This is an imperative mood. Иди сюда, when you're calling someone. Come here, иди сюда. Зовет меня Джулия. Джулия is calling me. Зовет. She is staying in a doorway. This in a doorway we would say в дверях. Literally means indoors, because двери is plural for doors. В дверях. Что, Джулия? Отвечаю я. What? What is it, Julia? I respond. What? Что? Что, Джулия? Отвечаю я. Ты не забыл, что сегодня мы летим в Россию? Ты не забыл? Didn't you forget? This is a very common way of saying something like that in Russian. We always use this negation, не. Like, don't you want to go to the store with me? Не хочешь пойти в магазин? Ты не забыл? Didn't you forget? So in Russian, this negation is very common. So, haven't you forgotten that today we fly to Russia? В Россию. Accusative case here. В Россию. Because it's a destination, so we use accusative. В Россию. Of course I didn't forget. I am packing. Конечно, не забыл. Я уже собираюсь. Собираться means to pack, to get ready, to go somewhere. Уже means already. So I am already packing. Я уже собираюсь. And then he introduces himself. My name is Daniel. Меня зовут Даниэль. Мне 24 года. So a little bit of numerals. Года, I receive a lot of questions about difference, like when do we use года, when do we use лет. For example, мне 25 лет, but мне 24 года. So, with one, we would use год. 1 год, 21 год, 31 год, and so on. So if it ends on one, that would be год. 2, 3, and 4, 2, 3, 4, we would use it like here, года. 2 года, 3 года, 4 года, 24 года, 103 года, 103 years old, it would be года. And 5 and more, it would be лет, лет. 5 лет, 25 лет, 37 лет, 49 лет. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and more. Okay, Julia, моя сестра. Julia is my sister. This is pretty simple. Мы живем в Лондоне вместе с родителями. Мы живем в Лондоне вместе с родителями. We live in London. Here we have a location, prepositional case, in London, в Лондоне, together with parents. Instrumental case. Remember, after with, we use instrumental. Вместе с родителями. Ей 23 года. She is 23 years old. Нашего отца зовут Артур. Our father's name is Arthur. You see, in Russian it would be Artur. Artur. Stress goes on U. Artur. А мать Natasha. And our mother is Natasha. Natasha. Она родом из Владивостока. It means she was born in Vladivostok. Literally, it means that originally she is from Vladivostok. Из Владивостока. We use genitive case. When we say from somewhere, we use genitive. А в Англию приехала учиться в институте. And to England, she came to study at the university. The words institution, institute, and university, in Russian it might be университет, might be institute, and sometimes we have academy, академия. So it's all about the higher education after high school students. В институте, когда ей было 22 года, when she was 22. See, that is what Ollie was talking about. A lot of repetition. 24 года. Then his sister, 23 года. So their mom came to England when she was 22 года. Repetition, repetition, and repetition. When you repeat something, some grammatical pattern many times, it gets to your brain. So, okay. Там, there, там. Они с папой и познакомились. There, she and dad met each other. In Russian, познакомиться means to meet someone for the first time. Познакомиться. Познакомиться. And again, with my dad. С папой. С папой. We use instrumental case after с. Okay? Сегодня мы с Джулией собираемся в поездку. Again, guess what? Instrumental. Мы с Джулией. I talked about this grammatical thing many times before. It is what you say in English, Julia and I. In Russian, we say we with Julia. It means two of us anyway. It says we and Julia. It's still Julia and I. But grammatically, мы с Джулией. That's how you show it in Russian. So, today, Julia and I, сегодня мы с Джулией, are packing for a trip to Russia. So, сегодня мы с Джулией собираемся в поездку в Россию. Packing for a trip, в поездку, to Russia, в Россию. Accusative case, because it's destination. They're not there yet. Location would be в России. I am in Russia. Я в России. I am going to Russia would be в Россию with accusative. Don't forget about this location-destination difference. Окей, по программе обмена студентами. For a program of student exchange. We say exchange of students, instrumental case again. Будет очень интересно. It's going to be very interesting. Future tense. Будет. It will be. Будет. Очень интересно. Так как is a synonym of почему. Whoa. Потому что. Почему means why. Потому что means because. And так как is a synonym. So it will be interesting because something. Так как я очень мало знаю о российской системе образования. It's going to be very interesting because I know very little, очень мало, very little, about Russian system of education. О российской системе образования. Russian system of education. Education in Russian is образование. Okay, going on. Я высокий means I am tall. Я высокий. My height, мой рост, 1 метр 87 сантиметров. 1 meter 87 centimeters. That is a lot. I don't know how to turn it to inches instantly, but that is a very tall person, trust me. That is a lot. Okay, у меня достаточно длинные темные волосы. I have a pretty long dark hair. This достаточно usually means enough of something, but also it can be used as like quite a bit something, or like pretty something. Like here, quite long hair. Doesn't mean they're super long, like to the floor, but pretty long, maybe like somewhere here, I don't know. Достаточно длинный, quite long. Dark hair, темные волосы. У меня зеленые глаза. I have green eyes and a big mouth. И большой рот. Я часто занимаюсь спортом. I'm doing sports frequently. Часто means often, frequently, regularly. Часто занимаюсь спортом, doing some sports. And regularly jog in the morning. Регулярно бегаю по утрам. That's why, поэтому у меня сильные ноги. That's why I have strong legs. У моей сестры Джулии тоже темные волосы. My sister Julia also has dark hair, but longer than mine. Но длиннее, чем у меня. Глаза у нее не зеленые. Her eyes are not green. Again, repetition. You see, he said, I have green eyes. У меня зеленые глаза. Julia doesn't have green eyes. She has brown eyes. У нее глаза не зеленые, а карие. Don't forget that brown eyes, we don't say коричневые глаза. Коричневые. We say карие. So brown eyes in Russian would be карие глаза. Карие глаза. Let me check my phone real quick. Yeah, let's continue. Just like our dads. Как у нашего папы. So she has brown eyes like her dad. Карие глаза, как у папы. У меня глаза такого же цвета. My eyes are the same color. Let me move it a little bit down like that. Такого же цвета means the same color. Такого же цвета. Like my mom. Как у мамы. У мамы. У Джулии полные губы. Julia has thick, plump lips. I definitely don't have plump lips. Yeah, they say Russians like don't have upper lip, which is kind of true. If you see a Russian person with a very thick upper lip, chances are very high that there are fillers there. I don't know many people who have naturally large upper lip. Maybe it's our genetics, I don't know. Okay, so she has plump, juicy lips, полные губы. Она очень красивая. She is very beautiful. Она очень красивая. My parents work. Мои родители работают. Работают. So this is the plural ending. Мои родители работают. Мой отец Артур. My father Arthur. Remember pronunciation. Артур. Мой отец Артур. Работает художником по костюмам в театре. Художник по костюмам, it's like costume, I don't know, it's somebody who creates costumes in a theater, some outfits for actors. We call it художник по костюмам. Remember, we use again instrumental case. To work as someone, we use instrumental. So he works in the theater. У матери, it means my mom has. Remember this construction, I have something, my friend has something. We use у and genitive case. У меня есть машина. I have a car. У мамы, or like here the full official word, у матери, she has her own business. Свое предприятие. Her business for selling books, по продаже книг в жанре научной фантастики. Научная фантастика, science fiction. Science fiction. Okay. Папа неплохо говорит на русском языке. Dad speaks Russian quite well. Неплохо means like not bad, good, well. Неплохо говорит на русском, speaks Russian. Дома мы разговариваем на двух языках. And at home, дома, we speak, мы разговариваем. We could use the verb говорим here, speak. Разговариваем is the synonym. In two languages, на двух языках. На русском и на английском. In Russian and in English. Oh, sorry. Whoa. Why does it keep moving? Is it visible for you? Yeah, okay. Папа смотрит на меня и видит, что я еще не одет. Dad is looking at me. Accusative case here. To look at someone, we use accusative. Папа смотрит на меня и видит, что я еще не одет, and sees that I am not dressed yet. Just like in English, to look at something is смотреть. To see something is видеть. So he looks at me and sees that I am not dressed yet, не одет. Даниэль, почему ты не одет? Daniel, why aren't you dressed? Like, why aren't you ready? Я недавно встал. I got up recently. Here. But my luggage is ready. Но мой чемодан уже готов. Is already prepared. Чемодан уже готов. Hurry up. Скорее. Скорее. Hurry up. We should go to the airport. Нам пора ехать в аэропорт. I would say it's time for us to go to the airport. This word пора means it's time to do something. So нам пора ехать в аэропорт. А потом мне нужно быстро идти на работу. And then I have to quickly go to work. So probably he got some leave at work to drive them to the airport. So he has to come back to work. I have very little time. У меня мало времени. Don't worry, Dad. Не волнуйся. This is a very common expression. Don't worry. Не волнуйся. Не волнуйся, папа. I'll dress up now. Я сейчас оденусь. Where is your sister? Где твоя сестра? Again, pretty simple. Где твоя сестра? She is in her room. Она у себя в комнате. This у себя means at herself, actually. So she is in her room, but we express it in this strange way. У себя, at herself, at her place, in her room. Dad is going to the room of my sister. В комнату сестры. We use genitive case in this possession. So it's her room, the room of my sister. В комнату сестры. Он хочет поговорить с ней. He wants to talk to her. Джулия смотрит на него. Julia looks at him. Good morning, Dad. Do you need something? Доброе утро, папа. Тебе что-то нужно? Something in Russian you express with что, little dash, and то. Что-то. Someone would be кто-то. Что-то, кто-то. Да, Джулия, твой брат уже одевается. Yes, Julia, your brother is already getting ready. He's already dressing up. Твой брат, your brother. I want you to take this with you. Я хочу, чтобы вы взяли с собой это. This. Папа показывает ей пачку рублей. Dad shows her a package of rubles. Ruble is a Russian currency, of course. In America you have dollars, in Great Britain you have pounds, in Europe you have euro, and so on. In Russia we have rubles. Rubles. $1 is 76 rubles. So the package of rubles. Julia очень удивляется. Julia is quite surprised. Очень удивляется. It's a lot of money here. Тут много денег. Наверное, целый миллион. Probably the whole million, the entire million. Целый миллион, she says. Говорит она. Не миллион. Not a million. Laughs Dad. Смеется папа. Здесь 500 тысяч рублей. Here are 500,000 rubles, which is a lot. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. Мы с мамой, again, remember this construction. My mom and, mom and I, meaning your mom and me. But in Russian we say we with mom. Mom and I. Мы с мамой накопили их для вас. Saved it for you. Для вас. We want to pay half of your trip to Russia. Мы хотим оплатить часть по вашей поездке в Россию. Part of your trip. Часть поездки. Thank you, Dad. I will tell Daniel. Спасибо, папа. Я скажу Даниэлю. Dative case. To tell who? to tell Daniel. Скажу Даниэлю. Let us stop here. Let us stop here. I don't want to reveal everything. But I really like this book. I really like it because not only it has these amazing texts, very nice with stress marks being bold, really nice exercises for retelling. So there is a short version, like a little excerpt of the story. So you can try and retell the story yourself, like what's going on. A little dictionary for some words you might not know. And several questions to practice, like Daniel and his sister Julia live in, and you should remember, like, where do they live? Not just in London, but do they live together? Do they live separately in different houses? Or is it another city? So kind of tricky questions, and you will have them after each chapter of this amazing book. If you want to practice yourself at home, this is a good book. This is probably like A2 level, definitely not for like people who started learning Russian yesterday. You just learned the alphabet. Maybe no. But if you know how to conjugate verbs, if you know how adjectives agree with nouns, all that good stuff. So if you understood most of what we've been doing today, reading this story, this is great for you. I will leave a link on Amazon if you want to purchase this book. It's totally worth the money. Great addition to your studies. If you study with a teacher, if you study on your own, this is a great supplemental material for you. I'm losing my breath again. So that was it for today. Thank you very much for staying. Thank you, Ollie, again for coming to my channel and talking to my students. I hope you all appreciate that he found time to come here. So that's it for today. Check out the links below this video. Hopefully you will find it useful. Все, that's it for today. Thank you very much for being with us. Большое спасибо и пока-пока. See you soon. Bye.